My name is Fleur Kilpatrick and I'm a playwright, and this year you can see my play Terrestrial in the season. I discovered plays because I'm really quite dyslexic and I love writing and I always loved storytelling, and my parents as a kid, if I was like throwing a tantrum, would just tell me to tell a story, and I would shut up instantly and just start spewing out a story. But in English class, as a school student, it's about how the words look on the page, about your handwriting and about your spelling and things like that, things that were both really hard for me. But writing stories in theatre, in drama class, wasn't about that. It was about how the words sounded, and I could make words that sounded good really easily. So yeah, I think I came to theatre because my writing was accepted there much faster than it was in English class. Once I've sat down at a desk and focused, I don't actually find writing very hard. For me, the difficult things about being a playwright are actually all the other bits. It's going to opening nights, and it's getting your play on in the first place so that you can go to that opening night. Those things I find much harder than writing. I could write a play any day. Okay, this is weird, but actually I find the most exciting stage is maybe draft 3 to 6, which is when you're doing these big, bold edits. So the first draft is just get it out, and then later on you get to this really fine tuning, but somewhere in the middle there you get to do these really bold, you have these really bold days where you just go, what happens if I do this? And you know that you've got the other draft saved, so it doesn't matter. Sometimes I'll just set myself a goal and say, what happens if I cut 10 pages today? Or what happens if I just get rid of this character? And I love that what happens if stage is really exciting. Well, I spend a lot of time thinking before I write. For me, there's really 4 things I need to know before I can really dive into a play. You need to know the why, so that's kind of the themes. What do I want to say? You need to know, for me, the voice, so how the people speak in the world is really important. The form, so how am I going to tell this story? And for me, the other one that's really important is place, what this world feels like. And you can start writing without some of those, but if you have none of those, then it's really hard. So you sort of need to gather a few of them. And sometimes I find writing lists like what do I know and what don't I know really helpful. And that doesn't have to be a negative thing, I don't know this yet, so I failed. It's about these are the certainties and these are the possibilities. And if you can phrase it like that, then that can become really exciting and a really great way to kick off. With Terrestrial, actually, I started writing with knowing the voice, knowing the form, and knowing the ideas. But the one thing that I didn't have was the place. And it was just grinding along. It was just sweating out a few words here and there. And it wasn't until I stopped and really thought about place and what this world was that the play actually took off and wrote itself really beautifully. Put your phone in a different room. No, actually, I do use my phone. I set timers. So what I'll often do is set a 45-minute timer and then have a 15-minute break. You just need to give yourself enough time to actually get into it. If you're writing for 2 minutes and then checking your phone, your brain just isn't actually going back to it. I also find sometimes writing warm-ups can be really helpful. It's hard to sort of go straight from not writing to writing your play. But if you take the time and go, I'm going to write for 5 minutes, just generate some ideas about what this character is like, and this isn't going in the play, so it's not important. Doing some low-stress writing like that can be really helpful as a sort of a way in. Reading still isn't my strongest skill, so I definitely am listening to more stuff than I'm reading. I listen to far too many podcasts. I think I'm subscribed to about 60. And they're mostly, I think it does relate back to what I do, because they're mostly about people telling their stories, and I find human voices so interesting, and just how a little snippet of someone's voice can tell you something so personal and interesting about a person. So podcasts, always. I think the reason that playwriting is so exciting is that it's a really malleable form. And so the mistake that young playwrights often make, I think, is maybe they've opened a play and then maybe they've read A Doll's House or something, and they look at the page and they go, that's not how I write. I don't set out words like that on a page. I don't go, he speaks, then she speaks, and he speaks, and she speaks. I don't do that. But you've got to remember that playwriting is actually so much more malleable than most other forms out there. You dictate the form doesn't dictate you. So if that's not working for you, write your play in a totally different form. Make it look different on the page. Make it work on the page in a way that suits your brain. Well, I guess I can talk about why theatre is so important to me. I think playwriting, I think the magical thing about theatre is you get a level of intensity in storytelling that you don't get. If I were to sit and read a novel by myself, it's a really different type of story experience. Whereas if I'm in a room with a bunch of other people, it can become this really communal transportation in a way. And that just feels like such a gift as a writer, to be given a whole room full of people sitting in the dark just waiting to hear your words. That's amazing. Plus, I just love the idea that there are collaborators waiting for me. Playwriting is, in a way, the most communal form of writing. So it's like I'm an introvert and I get to sit by myself in a room and write, but also I have to come out from time to time, and I think that's probably good for me. I feel like I'm going to be really corny. Good luck. I think playwriting is such an amazing and exciting thing to do, and this competition is actually how I got started in playwriting. I won this when I was 16 or 17, and 13 years later, this is my life. So I think it's such an amazing opportunity, and I hope you throw yourself into it wholeheartedly.